So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some basic cardio and building and getting your body strong enough to actually play in our art and be effective. Because I'm assuming that if you're here, it's because you want to be a more effective fighter. So we're going to go through all those concepts. We'll talk about your sword, we'll talk about your shield, we'll talk about the other guy's sword, the other guy's shield, and how to manipulate those things to the best of your advantage. Unfortunately, remember the other guy's also in this class, so they know the same information you do. So go fight people that are not in this class, and you can show them all tricks. Okay? So, if you have questions, by all means, give us a hands up so that we can address those issues. There may be some of them that we go, okay, let's finish this concept, and then we'll come back to you. Not trying to put you off, just trying to stay on track, because Oct and I are going to be rather distracted on occasion. Just occasionally. So we'll try to stay on track for you guys. There is a privy over there, and it's functional. And there's paper. So I guess really that's all you can. Please don't pee on the seat. Okay. So I'm just going to start and talk to you guys a little bit about some of the foundations in training and some of those things.
So the number one best thing you can remember to take to every practice, every time you take a class, is a beginner's mind. If you don't come to a class with a beginner's mind, or you don't go to a practice to learn something, and you ask somebody to teach you something, and then you're full of I knows and preconceived notions, you will learn very little. Somebody who's advanced and knows it is going to learn this much, and somebody who approaches it with a beginner's mind is going to have an opportunity to learn something new. I learn new stuff every time I teach. I learn new stuff every time I go to practice, every time I go to a tournament. I learn something new because I'm open to that experience. So please do your best to, sometimes you have to reset. Say, oh, I got to start over, beginner's mind, so I can learn something. So that is the number one most important thing when you're trying to learn something new, come into a class. You're not trying to prove what you know, you're trying to acquire more knowledge. I'm really big on foundations. No matter what class I teach, I always start with foundations. Just a big pyramid on the bottom, moving up to that finite skill, that ultimate goal we're always chasing and we'll continue to chase. There are guys here that I don't recognize as being out of practice, and there are some folks here that have been fighting way longer than me, and everybody's here to learn. So building that foundation is really important. That foundation starts with practice, everyday practice. I don't practice every day, but I should. And it doesn't mean you practice, like Maury said, for 8 hours a day. When you're getting up, getting ready for work, you throw your stretches in. You might throw a little workout in from time to time when you can. Lunchtime's an hour, I'm going to take 30 minutes and I'm going to go for a walk. As far as I can go for 30 minutes, just I sit at a desk all day. So that's part of my everyday practice, is to get out and move. Watching videos, there's a plethora of videos, thanks to Rifkin and several other folks, that put all this stuff out there, and you can watch those until your eyes bleed. And it's amazing crap to watch on. How do you do that? You can rewind it 100 times. So everyday practice is important. When you go to practice, most everybody here, I bet when you go to practice, you show up at practice, you put your kit on, and you go out and brawl with your buddy. Nobody's going to go out to practice and go, hey, I would like to work on how I close this distance or how I throw this snap. So it's important when you go to practice, go with something in mind to practice. Or when you get there, go with your friends and your buddies, if you have knights in your area or more advanced fighters, say, hey, what can we work on? Spend most of your practice practicing and training. Work on your footwork. Throwing blows, it sounds kind of silly, but you know, if you walk out there, I throw all my shots for the last decade with my left foot forward. It was the only time this foot ever came forward was when I was trying to do something silly or a trick. So practice with both feet forward. Other things, and I'm going to go, these are just kind of, we're going to touch these right now and then we'll go into more in depth later. Practice with both your hands. Go out and do slow work with a friend and just feel how it feels to fight with your offense, whether that's your right hand or your left hand, whether you're fighting with a great weapon and switching leads, how can you switch leads effectively with the gear you have. Practice, well, most people are very practiced at stepping away from danger. Practice stepping into danger. If you're in a tournament, the last thing you're going to do is something you haven't practiced. So stepping into a sword blow is counterintuitive. I don't want to be anywhere near that dude with his 40-inch sword coming at me. So sometimes that's the safest place. So again, different things to look at to practice. What are the advantages between stepping into away from different techniques? Practice controlling your measure, your range. If you're not used to fighting at close range, and somebody like me steps into your toes, it's going to be all reactionary because you're not going to be at all comfortable. Practice that at practice. Practice fighting from mid-range, where everything happens. All the angles are at mid-range. FAR measure or a C range. There's very linear. Everything's very linear out here, so it's a whole different picture in all those different ranges. But if you don't practice that, you can't utilize that in a tournament except to just react. You know, practice. There's several different progressive sword blow and defensive techniques you can practice with a partner. You know, just very slow, placing your sword along different lines, and then they have them block, and so there's different ways to practice those drills. Practice working both sides of your opponent, not just your onside shots, but there's offside shots, but you have to practice those as well. Not just to be able to throw them, but to be able to throw them without injury. I'm sure there's not many of us advanced fighters out here who have torn or done something horrible to our bodies because we were fighting too tired or without building a good enough foundation. Other things to practice, stepping with your opponent, stepping in spite of or because of your opponent. There's different times when you are leading the dance and when you're following the dance. It's very important to know which one of those you are. If you think you're leading the dance and you're not, that'll be a very unfortunate perception come the finish of that fight. And practice feeling how you feel as you're moving through this stuff. How does it feel to be in your armor? Is anything binding? That's a very important thing in motion. Anything I can do in armor, I can do out of armor and vice versa. There's very little, except for the weight maybe, that I can't do, that I cannot do in my armor. I have full hand motion, my leg mobility is fine, my torso is good, I can rotate my head pretty much as far as I can normally. And once you've practiced feeling how you feel in your armor and understanding that a bit, practice feeling how the other person feels. You can move with them, move against them. How do they react? What do you see? When you adjust your sword positions in a practice, how does that reaction of your opponent, how do they translate that? Do they see it as a danger? Do they adjust? Do they not adjust? You know, it could be something as simple as you coming forward and somebody just adjusts the line of their defense. But if you don't see that, you can't use it against them or readjust for it yourself if you don't see that adjustment. So again, it's about practice, repetition, so that when you're out on the field and you've got your 5 seconds to 15 seconds of glory right out there, you don't have to think about that stuff in the front of your mind. It's all happening in that computer that you've honed and trained. Understand your own capabilities, your own limitations. Again, it's armor. I have a messed up shoulder from a stupid track injury. I can't throw wraps wrong with my right hand, so I don't fight right-handed anymore. I fight left-handed. I got tired of re-injuring it, so I understand that limitation. I had to change up how I do this because I'm addicted to it. I can't not do this, so I find other ways. You know, understand, even if it's to the point of, hey, it's Tuesday, man, I'm not feeling as fast today on Tuesday, so I'm not going to throw a certain technique because it's just not going to work. I can hurt myself. Understand your own limitations, your own abilities. That will help you understand your opponent's limitation abilities, depending on what they're fighting with, how they're armored. You know, is their armor really heavy? Have they been out to practice for 3 or 4 months, or not at all? Hey, I'll be able to be faster than this guy. So it's that kind of understanding. And with practice, you can learn to read that both in yourself and your opponents. Anything else on basic overall practice?
Octa touched on knowing your armor. And don't be afraid to change your armor. You want to be used to your equipment. You don't want to be fighting your own equipment. If you're fighting your armor, you are not fighting your opponent. If for some reason my armor binds me here and I can't do this, okay, people all the time, I am a costumer, and one of the things that I use is I have a sleeve that I put into all my gambesons and all my coat hardies and all my Tudor dresses and everything I make, because if I can't do this, there is no point in wearing clothes. So, because I'm a fighter, and I see Octa, and we're all dressed up at 12th night, and we're all dressed up, and I say, Octa, how are you? I'm good, and how was that fight? Well, you know, I did a sting. Right? Right? How many times you look across, and they're at the back of the court, you're like, they're fighting. Yeah, they are. So, and because, even as nobility, I have to put up my own tent, which means that all of my stuff needs to be able to do this. When I'm fighting, you know, I've had people tell me, you never have to do that. Why are you testing that? Okay? Those elbows cross. I have to be able to have that motion. If I can't, Okay, now that blow didn't work. And that split second that blow didn't work, he's killing me, right? So don't fight your own equipment. You know, I can be hit by a big stick, doesn't bother me at all. I get blisters, I'm like, right? I'm a big baby. Don't pull one of my hairs, don't give me blisters, I'm good. So in that, I wear gloves, I take care of the things that I need to take care of. Some people don't, but if you're getting those little injuries, if you're getting that armor bite, you need to take care of that, because what's going to happen is your body learns not to do that. It took me a while to play with my shield to get it so it's very comfortable for me. It may not be comfortable for Octa, he may not like it at all. It's not for him, it's for me. My gear needs to fit for me, my sword needs to fit for me, my shield needs to fit for me. When you first start, they hand you something and go, is this comfortable? Nothing's comfortable. Of course it's not comfortable, right? So play with different things. You know, pick up other people's swords. What do you like? What do I like? What gives me better control? You know, and their thing is not going to be perfect for you, but then you can start to hone it. But if you have no idea what you're starting with, it makes it more difficult. For me, with my shield, what I learned is that, you know, you can call it girl hand, you can call it Mari hand, I don't know, but my hand, when I grip it, this whole side collapses in. This slopes, that collapses in, okay? So if I'm gripping tight on a shield, I wind up, if I pick up somebody else's strap, I wind up fighting like this. This is not a good blocking maneuver, right? This is strong, right? Strong, block, block, block. If I'm here, that is not, and the entire shield rides on this bone, and it hurts. So when it hurts, when I block, what happens? My body says, I'm not gonna block that, it hurts. Well, the rest of my body goes, well, you don't block it, it hurts. So I wind up cutting my practice short because I'm not comfortable in my own gear. You want to be comfortable in your own gear. You want to have your own gear. If you are coming out here and you are new and you're borrowing stuff, you want to get to the point that you can have your own stuff. At least, at the very least, your own shield, your own sword, your own helmet. The rest of the gear, you can build over time. But those three things, and being used to those three things, are going to make you a better fighter, just because now you don't have to relearn the shield every single time you're in armor. And I did say, experiment with other people's stuff. And this is true, but when you find the gear that works for you, try to stay with that long enough to maybe not master it, but at least to have a good working knowledge of it. So I've seen people go, oh, I'm going to fight with a strap heater. Oh, I think I'm going to fight with a center grip today. Oh, I'm going to fight with this today. They all have slightly different patterns that your brain learns. So let your brain learn one set of patterns and become efficient at it, so that then you at least have that working knowledge and you're not erasing it every single time. You know, I liken it to when you take a community dance class, for instance, and they're like, oh, we're going to cover ballroom dancing in 6 weeks. So I learned the cha-cha today, I'm going to learn the rumba next week, and now we're going to learn swing, and now we're going to learn waltz, and you're like, okay, now can you dance the cha-cha? No, because I've learned 3 other things since then, and we didn't reinforce the thing I learned originally, right? So the same thing, I start with a strap heater. It's like, this is great, I've got this corner, I've got this corner, I've got that corner. These are my motions, right? Okay, now I'm going to go to a center grip. These are not my motions anymore. I'm going to go around. Suddenly I don't have those corners. Okay, so now I'm trying to learn too many things. Take your equipment, learn your equipment. If somebody comes to you and says, this shield is so not working for you, then you need to weigh that. Do I want to make it work for me? Do I want to learn this thing? Or is there something that's going to suit me better? Okay, and talk to your knights. You know, we've dealt with a lot of body types in our time. We've put folks in armor in a lot of different ways. Just because I fight with that heater does not mean you should fight with that heater. So take the expertise and learn the equipment. Look at other people, how they strap their legs, how they do this, how they do that. You have a lot of expertise around you, and some of us try to reinvent that wheel. And we do it in such a way that, okay, now my legs don't move, or this is too heavy, or this is all I can get, but now I'm fighting it and it's biting me. You're not going to learn well until you're comfortable in your equipment. You also need to be comfortable in your body. There are a lot of prerequisites to what we do that you don't think about. If I'm lifting weights, for instance, I am not going to lift 100 pounds before I learn to lift 50 pounds, right? So if I can't lift 50 pounds, chances of me then going, you know, I think I'm going to lift 100 pounds, because 50 pounds, I can't get that. It's just not working. Well, in fighting, we tend to want to do that. We don't think of the logic of You know, if I don't have the motion to get over here, and I don't have the stamina in my thighs to keep this motion up, right? How do I expect to be able to do that more advanced technique and be able to be in the right position and do all that without hurting myself? I might get a one-off because I'm athletic. And some of us come to this art athletic already, so we can get away with some things, but I'm not going to have the stamina for it. Yesterday was a prime example. I haven't been in armor since April, and I went and fought the tournament yesterday. You know, I'm as good once as I ever was, but I'm not as good as I once was because I am not in shape. And by the end of the longest 20 minutes of my life, I am blowing wind, and I'm just like, okay. And because of my experience, I knew that I had to change my fighting technique towards the end of that 20 minutes. So the first of that 20 minutes, I was like, yeah! And Octa came to me in the second half, and he's like, let's go! And I'm like, and we're going to do static fighting. And he's like, because it was long 20 minutes from him too, I'd like to say. But by having my cardio up, by having that stamina, if I had been the best in shape person at the end of that 20 minutes, I'm going strong while he's blowing wind. So in preparation, had I gone, oh, you know, I need to make sure that I can get my very best for this, by having my cardio up, by having my stamina up, by having my stretches, by not being limited by my own body, and by having that extra ability, now my fighting is going to advance because I am not holding myself back. Because I know that if, for instance, if I rush Octa and he's going to back up, if you notice, he's never on his back heel. He's not here. If he got on his back heel, oh, it's so hard. Because there's nothing he can do, right? So, you can hold him. I appreciate that part too. But if you don't know how to do that work, if you don't understand how your body works, you are going to limit what you can do and you're going to die because of it. So we're going to give you some exercises and some things to think about concept-wise, and some things that work well. One of the exercises I give people is, you know, when you're in your house, walk backwards. And when we walk forward, our head goes forward, right? So we balance. Now you can walk upright, and that's fine. If I'm walking fast, head comes forward. The thing is, when you're walking backwards, your head doesn't go backwards. It goes forward. Your butt leads, right? Well, when we're fighting, often, when he rushes me, I may start that way, and I'm here, right? Because in my brain, my head says, get your head out of the way, right? Because that's the part that sees him. That's the part that has the fright. And so it's like, oh, I'll get my head out of the way. Well, here, everything is onto my abs. Now, I have pretty strong abs, so I might be able to take this for a little bit. But the physics is still going to take over. So we're going to talk about some of those things about the motion, about how getting people off their feet. There's things that we do because we are human and because physics takes over. Your shield wants to help you. We're going to show you that. It's not helping, but you know, how to then use that against your opponent. But by being in shape the best that I can be, and by knowing these things and knowing my own limitations, allows me to capitalize on that. Okay? So we're going to talk about lines of measure. We're not going to give you a whole lot of footwork. If that is something that you are wanting more information on, we're more than willing to go further with that. I think, is anybody here super duper brand new? Excellent. Okay.
Less than 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go over some of that, but we're not going to get super in depth with it because most of us have an idea of our footwork. We are going to talk about line distance angle, which is going to take care of that, and we're going to talk about weight shift and some power generation issues and how the body can be maximized to give you the best efficiency on that. Yep. Yep. And then I'll jump in on that for a moment.
One last little bit to finish up what Barry said about exercising and fitness. I'm a real big proponent of stretching. And finding somebody who really knows what they do so you're not hurting yourself stretching is really important. There's lots of muscles that I never knew I even used or had until I went to somebody who was a professional and they go, wow, does it hurt when you walk? No. Why is your foot turned out? Or were you standing there and stop standing? Oh, it's 20 years of doing this. My feet don't go straight anymore. feels like I'm pigeon-toed when I'm actually standing straight. So learning stuff about your body and understanding that cardio is key in more than just wind. When you get winded and you start depleting oxygen, you start building acid in your muscles, your brain starts to shut down, all those tools start to go slower and slower. And as you rise as a fighter and learn more and more things, that mental game is key. Even if you can still throw a fast blow, if you don't know when to throw it or why to throw it, it doesn't matter how fast you do that snap. Okay, and then the other thing, everything we do is anaerobic. We go from 0 to 60. My shot starts here, everything's relaxed, and then explode into a shot, into relax, explode. So finding somebody who can teach you to train those muscles and all those long and short fibers how to move so that when you explode, there isn't this horrible bee sting feeling and tearing sound that you just tore a muscle on. I've torn this muscle on a lot of my calf. On my first meeting, you could put a 1-inch dowel in the gap. And all I did was that. I stepped and the muscle was cold, it was fatigued, and it pulled apart like clay. So those are things to think about. And you know, when I was in my 20s, we could go from couch to practice to tournament without a whole lot of retribution. I'm 44 now, I've been doing this for 20-some years, and yeah, it takes a lot of forethought and planning and practice to keep myself from getting injured. Next thing we're going to cover kind of some more in-depth parts of your practice.
Can I just interrupt you real quick? This is the waiver. Everyone that's here needs to sign it, even if you're a blue card or not.
We were told, sign in. You're here.
All right. If you're fighting, sign this, or you didn't plan on fighting.
So the first thing we would cover, first header is proper technique. Technique is key. Anybody can swing a club, but technique really is key. 2 reasons. One, it can prevent injury, and 2, so it can't be blocked. If you throw really good, clean technique, that means you're using the right parts of your body and you're throwing it in the correct lines. They're the most efficient. I can teach you how to throw really hard like this, but I can teach somebody who else is going to know how to just block that without any effort at all. Once you start finding lines and using your proper technique to throw a blow, you can throw it at almost any line, any angle, with just slight adjustments.
Can you guys hear okay? Because that white noise is all kinds of fun, but you know. All right, okay.
So, first part, why we're here today is for movement. So feeling the motion of your own movement. Practice, you know, and I'm really big on about 3 different books. But the first book I usually cover is Musashi. Book of 5 Rings, the military version, not the business version. And one of Musashi's things is, one thing we've been doing for most of our lives is walking. Just like Barry said, walking. This is a habit. This is something you know how to do. And so in fighting, you don't need to take big lunges. There's a time and a place for exaggerated motion, but most of it is a game of inches. So be comfortable in your own movement. Feel how the weight transfers when you step to this foot. You know, are you putting 100% weight on it? Are you balanced? Teach proper balance with your pelvis, you know, straight up and down, keeping your center. Part of the movement is stepping. This, your knee never goes past your toe. As soon as that knee exceeds that, you're engaging all kinds of muscles, and there's nowhere to go except the direction that that knee wants to fall. You can't go backwards without standing up. And this motion from here to there, that's a lifetime when you're talking about half-second low techniques. As soon as somebody who's paying attention sees your knee drip, bam, 5 seconds, you can't move. You can only go one direction. Understanding that, now you can cheat it a little bit. If you know that you're going to go that direction, you really need to be there. But 90% of the time, you never need to be over here. All this little soft tissue now is engaged, and it's thread of getting down. As you move, understanding how that balance works, and then once you understand how your balance is, you can also read how your opponent's balance is. Where are their toes pointed? Can they only go one direction because that's the direction their toes pointed? How do you generate your movement? You know, where do you move from? Where I was talking about moving backwards and generating all this motion from your shoulders, then you have to catch up to that motion. It's off balance. So keeping everything balanced and stacked. Stacked through your heels, stacked through the balls of your feet.
need to be on the ball first. Okay? You should be able to slip sword blades underneath your heel, not inch and a quarter. An actual like quarter width, right? So that you have that motion instantly here. If you get flat-footed, that pause means that I have to actually completely stop my motion and restart. Now, most of us, I'm going to go with a good 90%, are not going to be able to take advantage of that. They're going to see stuff and go, oh, I should have thrown something. And in that tire space, lifetime of thought, you've gotten off your deal and you're like, oh man, that was close. But if I get called here, and I have most of my weight here, right? I'm stuck for that moment. So I need to be able to push off it. But if I'm on the toes, if I have that dance, if you watch Octa and I move together, so we're moving with me. Right? I am able to match him step for step. Octa's much faster than me, I guarantee it. His cardio is much better than mine, I guarantee it. But I'm able to bring my best fight because I can stay here. The other advantage of being here is that I am always set to throw that blow. That means that while he is dancing me backwards, if I get up, I'm still there. I can still push. I can still turn. If I get myself totally unwound, right? I got a Hail Mary. Oh, maybe. One of the disadvantages of being less than extra medium in this game is that I don't get to accidentally kill anyone. I am too light, I am too small. I do not have the body mass to go, walk, you're dead, right? I don't get it. It's not in my card set. We have lots of folks who are extra medium or better. They get to go wrong. When they're new, that's to their advantage because they get some kills that they didn't earn. Unfortunately, as they get better, it's to their disadvantage because if they learn to grow, they don't learn their technique. Once those people learn technique, they have all the tools in the toolbox, right? But I have to start with it. I have to start with being able to push off the ground, being able to turn my hips, okay? So, talk about your feet, being on the balls of your feet. When I'm moving, unlike some martial arts, we're wearing knee cocks, okay? Knee cocks mean that if I'm crossing my feet, I'm in a very bad place because I can't do a cat stance like they do in some of the martial arts right here because I have knee cocks. What that does is those guys catch, and I'm stuck. If I'm doing this cross and do like this, you see that dead? You see me dead? I saw him. So I want to, if I'm moving side to side, I want the foot in the direction I'm moving to be first. One there, that's what I'm moving. Right? I don't think I did it. That's fine. That's not the same as crossing my feet. I really don't want that deep cross. Here, this moment, I'm and you could argue, oh, you can do that while you're out of range. Yeah, well, I don't trust my body to remember that we're out of range and can do stupid stuff. And then when I get in range, not decide it's going to do it then. Because we will perform what we practice. Practice is great. Perfect practice is great. Perfect practice is great. So when you are practicing and when you do not have the threat of imminent death, practice correctly. One of the things I really like about my belt is it does not get bored. It does not get impatient. It does not decide we're done because it needs a soda. It will stand there for as long as I want to get there. And even knowing that, the belt, the inanimate object, when I fight against it, when I'm doing my belt work, I actually feel bad if I have to do the same thing over and over because the hell might be judging me. And I know that that's completely ridiculous. I still feel that way because when I'm working with my opponent, I'm worried, even if Octa is completely patient and doing it again, If I'm doing it with my pal, there is no reason that when I'm doing that thrust, okay? If I'm doing thrust, sure. Oh, missed the pal. Do it again. Don't film it, don't have anybody watch. It's you and the pal. The pal will not tell me. I guarantee dog lost. But I can throw that until I get it right. What do I know? I know I need to leave that hand loose, right? So I can go over that thrust. I know this hand needs to be loose. Okay. If I mess it up, okay, now I can analyze. What did I do wrong in fixing it? I want to practice it perfect. I want to get it so that repetitive motion is what I go back to. Because ultimately, especially when you are out of practice or when you are under threat, you're going to go to your baseline. You're going to go to what you know best. I want to increase the line of what I know best. And often what I find, when I've got a night comes out, they actually do pretty good, even though they're all wealthy and have money. Because my baseline is higher than your baseline. Right? So even if you're in practice and you're fighting at that higher level, my baseline is still higher because I've worked for 25 years to get my baseline that high. So when you rush me, I'm still not going on my back heel. When that shot opens, I can still hit it. I may not be able to do my inch and a quarter game, but I still have a 4-inch game. And if your game is a foot, I still win. So by increasing that, when I'm in practice, that tightens up and tightens up and tightens up, and it tightens up by inches. When you're starting, you get to learn new things and jump up that mountain by leaps and bounds. You're going up to 4 feet a day. When you get really good, the mountain's steeper and higher, and you're going up 2 or 3 inches a day. If that. But I still make those leaps. My baseline is still higher than yours. I put into practice. So if you want to be there, put into practice. Learn the things you need to know. And some of those, no one's going to tell you. They're not going to come to you and go, you know, if you want to get better, you need to work on that thrust and throw 100 thrusts in the hell of night. They're not going to tell you. You need to have the discipline to do it yourself. I'm a nurse. One of the things I tell my diabetics, you can eat as much cake as you want. My blood sugar will never go up with the cake you eat. Same thing with this. My fighting color does not go down if you don't practice. Right? My practice affects me. Now, I might be able to get a fight with me because I'm watching TV. Right? But I can drag him kicking and screaming to better prowess by having to fight with me. But that's not my job. My job is to make me better. So remember that. When you have a dedicated partner, it's helpful a lot. Because to have somebody else who's willing to trudge up the mountain with you is very nice. And then you can complain about being sore together and cruises together. So, you know, it makes it a little easier when the other person's like, we should go practice. I don't want to practice. Yep, we should. Okay, we'll go practice. Right? Even if you only have 5 minutes to go work on the pelt, that's 5 minutes that if you didn't do, that 5 minutes you don't work on the pelt is not going to make it. 5 minutes you work on the pelt might give you a new idea. So you got to put that training machine in tomorrow. Okay? All right. Okay, so when I'm looking at my opponent, we're going to talk a little bit about angle, line, measure, okay, which is our distance. The things that I need to look at when I'm actually in armor fighting my opponent. So I'm standing here. Okay, so he is in the X. The X is not a good place to be. And people have told you this probably. If you follow any amount of time, you say, don't stand in my X. Let me tell you what that means. And what I find is that a lot of times fighters will shorthand information. And sometimes they know the answer and sometimes they don't. Why not you tell me for years? You need to freeze their shield and then throw the rest. Freeze ray, am I using ice cube? How am I freezing their shield in place? Can we go over the freezing part? I got the wrap part. Well, you didn't get the wrap, you didn't freeze their shield. I still don't know how to do that, right? So when people say don't stand in longer with my sword, even by an inch or two, because this is a game of inches, then I am going to be, he might be in range to strike me, or I am in range to strike him. But the range of the fight, the measure of the fight, is where his sword can strike me, even if I cannot strike him. Right? One of the easy ways to change that range is if I am fighting with my sword put back, I'm here. Just by swinging, you notice, X is low, right? Just by swinging my feet, I have gained 6 inches of range. And, okay? That doesn't mean that I always want to be that 6 inches forward. It means that I can use it. It means that I can whoosh. Just switch my feet. If he's not paying attention to that little foot switch, then I gain an advantage. Or if he sees it and doesn't know what to do about it, I gain the advantage. But his brain, because my sword, my shield, has not moved further, he does not see the difference between this and that. So I get to play that game of inches. Then I am what we call B-range, where we can both strike each other, but we're not really, our shields aren't right in love right now. Shield work, touching his shield requires me to be out of position, right? But here is a very dangerous place to be, because I have the shorter weapon. I am well within his range, and he is at the edge of my range. He just needs a little. I'm out. He's still going to strike me, right? I need to be aware of that. And it's a dangerous place for me to be right here. I need to be at the edge of his range. So he has to take a step, or he has to do something to engage this fight. So I'm standing in here for gunfighting. Did I mention he's faster than I am? In this place, gunfighting, this is dangerous. Now, there are some predictable things I can throw in. Okay? I know that the fastest shot he can throw is to my temple. Absolute fastest. Right? Right? And if I have that unblocked, it's candy. He's like, I want some. Right? Now, I can shut it down. So that blow becomes less tempting. And so he's going to change what he's doing. Because I shut that down. If I fight the right here, I have that corner of the shield right there, so I can put back. So yes, it's his fastest shot. It's also the easiest for me to block. I also know in that predictability though, that if that's what he will throw here, he knows that if he throws that, this is the first thing he stops and he knows. Let's say he blows flat that. We train each other that you think, well, why should I throw that? It's always blocked. That's because we've trained each other to always block it. Because it's that 1-2, it's quick. But I can also use that knowledge against him. So if he throws it, because he's going to go, oh, that's what she's going to throw. And if I can make him believe, yes, that is what I'm going to throw, and drop it, now I get a little bit. It's a chess game. The whole thing is a chess game. Who does what? That's not footwork. That's not me moving. That's just us standing in stupid range, trying to outgun each other. Not a good plan. Stay mobile. A range, we get up here. Now, there are some things, this has some advantages, but I mentioned that I am not extreme. I am very small in our game. I am very lightweight in our game. Which means that if I stand here with a lot of fighters, I'm going to get chucked into the sweet by and by. This is not a good place for me. I am limited in what I can do. I have some outside game, right? And this requires a lot of